It's been a couple of days since Yae Miko's release, so it is time to take a look on how to build our favorite shrine maiden. At level 90, Yae Miko has 340 base attack, which is really high, putting her on the 4th place of characters with the highest base attack. 24.2 crit rate through Ascension, making it easier to stack as much crit damage without caring too much about crit ratios. As for her talents, she performs up to 3 normal attacks, and her charge attack creates this lightning chain on the ground with a tremendously high stamina cost of 50. On a quick side note, if you switch to another character to interrupt her normal attacks and go back to Yae Miko, she makes an annoyed expression, which is a nice little detail. Yae Miko has 3 charges on her elemental skill. Using one makes her dash a short distance and places a Sessho Sakura totem that strikes nearby opponents with lightning. For every additional totem nearby, it increases its level by 1, boosting their own damage. The totem's duration is 14 seconds, with the ability's cooldown being 4, up to a total of an initial 12-second cooldown for placing all 3 totems. As for her elemental burst, she summons a lightning strike, dealing AoE damage and destroying every present totem to unleash up to 3 additional thunderbolts. The burst has a high cost of 90 energy and a cooldown of 22 seconds, but when using it, it deals tons of damage. The first Ascension passive resets the cooldown of her totems for each of the additional lightning strikes in her burst, basically allowing the player to place all the totems again if they were destroyed by Yae Miko herself. The second Ascension passive increases her totem's damage by 0.15% for every point of elemental mastery she has. Okay, let's go quickly through her constellations. Her C1 is overall really good, changing her 90 energy burst into a 66, so you have to focus less on energy recharge. Her C2 increases the level of the totems by 1 and attack range, which results in more damage. Her C4 gives plus 20% electro damage bonus to party members, which is nice for mono electro teams or other sub DPS characters. As for her last constellation, her C6, it allows her totems to ignore 60% of her opponent's defense. With Yae Miko not having a cutout artifact set for her, you may want to build her depending on the playstyle and the substats of her artifacts. 4-piece Emblem of Severed Fate is definitely the go-to set if you want to deal with a high demand of energy recharge and put a bit more damage towards her elemental burst. But that means sacrificing damage on her totems, of which she basically has a 100% uptime on. If you really want to squeeze out as much damage as possible, then you should decide on a combination of 2 artifact sets giving Yae Miko more offensive stats. The best option would be 2-piece Gladiators or Shimenawas for 18% attack, and a 2-piece Thundering Fury for 15% electro damage bonus. If you don't have a good Thundering Fury set yet, or just bad substats, you may even go for the whole 36% attack from Shimenawas and Gladiators, since she really gets a lot of value out of this because of her high base attack. You would want an attack stance, electro damage goblet, and crit rate or crit damage circlet depending on your stats. And for substats, the generic prioritization: first crit stats, attack percentage, energy recharge, and then elemental mastery. The aforementioned passive is in terms of scaling not that amazing, so you should not plan to get a huge amount of elemental mastery. It just makes artifact RNG more bearable, since you can still use that stat. Kagura's Verity is obviously Yae Miko's best in slot weapon, since it is tailor-made for her. Skyward Atlas is a really nice stat stick that you should definitely give her if you happen to own this weapon, and your Yae Miko has a good crit rate to crit damage ratio. Lost Prayer may look really nice with 33% crit rate, since you can focus on stacking crit damage, but that's not often the case, so the weapon falls short to crit damage catalysts. Also, the passive doesn't really fit her playstyle, requiring you to stay on field. All in all, not a good weapon for her. Now for the 4-star weapons. The Witsiv is currently the most popular option, which is deserved because of its high amount of crit damage that it provides, and a passive that is a blessing and a curse at the same time. Triggering the passive and getting one random buff makes her deal much more damage, especially on high refinement. But the downside of that weapon is the 20-second cooldown of that passive, plummeting her damage in the time window. Solar Pearl is quite a nice option with crit rate and an increase in her elemental skill and burst damage through the passive, although to trigger the buff you occasionally need to perform a normal attack on Yae Miko. Hakushin Ring has high base attack and tackles her problem with energy recharge, but to trigger its passive she has to be on field. And at last, for the new free event catalyst Ozorn Eye, it gives Yae Miko a substantial amount of attack and even energy recharge through its passive, as she can basically have 100% uptime on that because of her totems. Also, this weapon has a good synergy with the Emblem of Severed Fate artifact set. If you haven't built Yae Miko right now, then just slap Thrilling Tales or Favonius Codex on her for the utility if she deals little to no damage. It might be a bit too early to talk about her teams, but as of right now you can use her in the following compositions. Mono Electro with Yae, Raiden, Kujo Sarah and Kazuha or Bennett. A Sukukomon variation where you swap Fischl for Yae. Electro Charge team with Yae Miko, Fischl, a character with off-field Hydro application like Komi and Xingshi. You may fill the last spot with Kazuha, Zhongli, Sucrose, Child or Beidou. Last but not least, an AFK team consisting of Yae, Raiden, Zhongli and Albedo. As of now, Yae Miko seems to be in a weird spot, since she does not have her own artifact set, established team or dedicated support yet. But there lies so much potential in future updates. Many Electro characters don't have their own artifact set yet, like Keqing and Fischl. But my best guess is that in future updates, they are going to release an artifact set that somehow increases the damage of characters that have elemental skills as their key part of the kit. And if not, Sumeru's release seems to be really close now together with Dendro, and maybe the Dendro reaction together with Elemental Mastery might be really beneficial to Yae Miko. Do you have Yae Miko? And if yes, are you satisfied with her overall? Comment that down below and tell me if I missed something that should have been mentioned in the video. See you next time.